So you've finally done it. You achieved what you've thought you've always wanted. You now maybe have the car, the amount of money you've always wished for, a stable job, maybe even a business, the home and the friends you've always thought you wanted to be surrounded by. However, past 25, now into your 30s, something's been changing. When you reflect back on the last 10 years of your life and building yourself to where you are today, you've been feeling like you've just been on autopilot, not really even sure if you were even there while you were creating the life you have now. The success you've achieved feels empty, almost like it doesn't matter anymore, as if you've just been a ghost. And all of this is frustrating, confusing, frightening, because what does this all mean? Now, I've been through this multiple times in my life, and as somebody who helps men in this exact scenario, trying to find inner peace, masculine excellence, and higher meaning, I want to share with you my 3 internal thresholds straight from my shadow work system as to why this is happening to you and what can you actually do about it. The very first is the mimic phase. Most of our ambition in our 20s is often high functioning trauma. You see, in those late teens, early 20s to mid 20s, this is the persona development era. We take a lot of our history and we adapt and survive, meaning that if something has happened to you in your early years of childhood, perhaps a dynamic or certain events that have, just over time sat with you in a particular way and they formed some level of belief system, core values, interpretations of the world. And we take all of it, internalize it, and start shaping ourselves to be what we deem acceptable, not only to ourselves, but to our authority figures. I know for me, when I was in my late teens to early 20s, mid 20s, a lot of you guys who watch my channel know this, I wanted to be a world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at black belt, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It's such a high skill level sport. And I went into it, I committed my life, I put everything into it, sacrificed school. I didn't finish high school for it. I never went to parties, dieted, ate the most boring things to make sure I keep myself in check for my weight. And all that effort paid off because I was actually able to not only compete in over 40 tournaments, but have achieved around 30 medals with 90%, maybe actually if I'm being conservative, 85% being gold. So I felt like I'd done very well. But around the same time, 25 years old, all of a sudden, this feeling of emptiness, this feeling of like, what am I doing? All of a sudden, I don't want this title anymore. I don't want to pursue what I thought I wanted. And it was confusing and frightening and scary. And upon reflection on it, when I've been through that, that pit of hell of complete identity loss and confusion, is when I came out of it realizing that what I've built at the time was really a way for me to plug the pain that I had internally. So the few things you want to know is, number 1, this is a completely normal and necessary phase in your development. And there's no going around this. This is just part of what has to happen. If you've ever tried talking, if you had like, let's say a thought experiment, talk to yourself when you're in your 20s and let them know that what you're doing now is making you feel more empty and hollow, and tell them how it's not really going to pay off and you might want to actually reconsider your life decisions. You're just going to tell yourself to F off. Like, you're not really going to listen, right? So it's completely normal, right? It's absolutely normal. And in fact, very important for your not just personal development, but your spiritual development, having more access to your center, that nameless being within you that is really untouchable by judgment, criticism, failure, or even corruptible by success. Number 2, what you have built thus far is not wasted, but rather a time for you to update your inner compass, what actually has you moving towards what it is that you desire, and audit your whys, and auditing them very, very deeply. And it's a very common concern that I often hear from men who start to go through this process. They think that, well, does that mean that everything I built with my business, all the skills I acquired, are they wasted? Absolutely not. They're not wasted. And I'll explain in the later inner thresholds as to why that's not. We spend our 20s building a life that we thought would save us, only to realize in our 30s that we have been running from ourselves the entire time. Dissolve to evolve. This period is the era of the identity death. The old version of you that was clung on to survival, to proving, to acceptance, is now meeting the shadow. It's an internal pressure that you get called upon. I like to think of it in my system as the soul's calling for wholeness. It is asking of you to face these parts of yourself now, and we can no longer continue with this mirage. This period is going to be a painful transition in any man's life because there's so much attachment you've had to it. You have built relationships around it. You have built coping mechanisms that have, worked for you. Like, there are positives as well as there are the negatives. And so this just makes it even more difficult. And the transition between the old you right here, moving all the way into the newer, more evolved, shedding that old baggage, is what I call the desert. The old you is peeling off, but you have yet to actually know what the newer you feels like. You haven't yet stepped into it. And so that period is confusing and frustrating and frightening. I know for me, when I went through it, I was doing it alone. And I had no idea what was going on. It was absolute despair. And the hardest part about this realization in the desert period is that you're facing those deeper, harsh truths that you've been really doing a lot of work to plug up. For me, the internal inferiority that I felt to other people, I felt I wasn't cool enough, that I had to act a certain way to blend in. And so I used medals and, athletic power and the ability to fight to mask it so that I can overcompensate. And then I had to face all of that at one time, all day, every day, constantly. And with my clients, the strategy during this period, or at least preparing them for that journey, is understanding how to actually audit your loop patterns. The loop patterns are your thoughts, emotions, and actions that you repeat that reinforce an old narrative that you have adapted to survive and protect yourself and your ego. And the idea of auditing every single one is to know exactly how it's operating, to find where this goes. Because a lot of us are really unconscious as to why we do what we do. Why do we repeat the same behaviors and actions? And so the audit process is about peeling and dissolving all of them so that we can rebuild anew. Do not resist this phase. If you try to fight it, you are going to have to sacrifice your soul in a way that you are going to pay for much later on in the future. You're going to have to numb yourself. And if you're watching this, then more than likely you are someone who wants to connect with something deeper within themselves, which in turn is connected to something larger outside themselves. And if you try to resist and fight it and deny or distort this transition, it is only going to block that light within you. So as difficult as it is, you have to allow yourself to transition into it voluntarily with courage. You can feel fear, but nevertheless, you venture into that darkness. Now, of course, when you're alone and you're doing this, it's very difficult. So down below, I got that link to my waitlist. I made the announcement. The community is going to be for free community for men who are wanting to work through my shadow work system to find more inner peace, masculine excellence, and higher meaning in their lives. And for those that haven't found the right men's group out there, and that's why I created this one. But anyways, next one. This is the time to actually return to your soul. Throughout those years, we distract. We're go, go, go. We're paying more attention to results and success and achievement and glory and the pleasures of the ego. And this is the time to return to absolute silence. You have to sit with yourself for long periods of time. And the 3 ways, I can actually write that down for you, the 3 ways that you can actually reflect internally and make it actually productive. You have your classic journaling. My personal favorite is audio recording. and then transcribing later, it's actually really effective. I love it because then, for example, I have on my phone, I don't know if you guys can see it. Let's see if you guys can see right there. If it focuses on it. I don't think it wants to, huh? Well, anyways, there's a voice recording button that I have on my phone. So whenever I have this insight, something I want to actually save, I click the button, audio record it, automatically transcribes it for me, and it saves me a lot of time. And then also you have active imagination. And what's really important about this, there's a difference between active imagination and rumination. Rumination is when you are now sucked into the actual emotional part of that event that you're thinking of, that moment, whether it be in the past or fears of the future, and you're emotionally invested in it now, and you're just running through these bad, regressive thoughts. So that's not what I mean when I say active imagination. It's more like you're separating yourself from the thoughts you were having and observing and watching it play out so that you can understand yourself much more deeply. Despair is not the end of your life. It's the signal that the person you were pretending to be is finally passing away. Mastery without persona. See, the most common thing that I get talked to about during this phase and transition is the fear that they're going to be left with less, with half of what they are. But in reality, from my own experience of doing this multiple times, and now I've coached other men to do the same thing and go through the same process, post-desert walk actually leaves you with, I'm going to get rid of that, with more than you ever imagined, because you're making room for more energy, for more power, for more wholeness, because all these fragments of ourselves, these complexes that told you that you need to prove yourself, you need to defend yourself, you need to show you're smart and all these kinds of things, they served a purpose for some time, but when they're overdue, they're now baggage, it's weight, it's energy that you have to use to keep them and hold them and avoid them. And so by removing all of it, you are actually bringing more back inside of you. You are consolidating yourself. This is leaving you in a sovereign, forgot the N on that one, or rather that is the N, it's just a terrible N. Sovereign authority, the ability that you are now dictating rather than being dictated by your past and your history. So for me now, I still train jiu-jitsu. I still want to master whatever it is that I feel called upon, whatever I feel passionate about. And I also want to seek to be the best version of myself. I still strive for that. But now the only difference is the wheat has been separated from the chaff. I am no longer doing this for a story. I'm no longer doing this to plug up a pain. Because understand that at the core of your being, the soul level, where it is that nameless entity that lives within you connected to something bigger, to God, universe, source, has but one request. It is for you to express yourself as authentically and as genuinely as possible. That is all it asks of you. And so you realize over time that your frustration, your anger, all these emotions that you felt were negative to you were in fact just signals. The emotions were signals to something more underlying. And you will see that this dark night of the soul, the desert walk, is simply preparation for a much larger, more meaningful responsibility. Ask yourself these two questions during this period. What will you still have after you walk in the desert? What traits, what behavioral actions, what beliefs? Make sure it's internal, not external. What did you have all along that you thought you didn't, that you thought you had to prove? So for me, as just one quick example, I always thought that I was lazier, that I wasn't able to actually get things done, and I had lazy tendencies with certain things. But what I realized over the two massive identity crises that I had was I was always that person who can work hard. I just realized the fuel source needed to be tweaked. When my fuel source was pursuing money for attention and fame, it died off. That fuel source runs dry real quick. But if I'm feeling instead a reconnection to something that is calling me forward for a bigger service to other people, then I can work all day long. Right now, I work like all day. The minute I wake up in the morning, I have my coffee, I play with my daughter and talk to my wife, but then I go on my computer and I'm working. And if I'm not working on this, I'm working at the academy, teaching classes, running the business there. Great meaning requires its equal weight in responsibility. Thank you very much. Click the links down below. Join that waitlist for the free community. This is an environment for men to actually just be and to walk through my system to then transition from a place where you're feeling controlled by your past, you're tormented by it, and you're not sure what it is you want to do and what are your passions, what are you excited about, how do you want to live your life, and you want to find meaning through it. And you're going to use my system that I've done for myself and many men who are on the same path for free. You get access to it, and you get access to our weekly Sunday sessions where we work together, we communicate Q&As, we do some stress tests, which is something I'm really excited about, where it's trying to challenge and practice the ability to stay consolidated and centered. And so if you want more information on all of that, down below, click that link and check it out.